The Indiana Hoosiers tonight will remind everybody why they're a top-4 team in the Big Ten.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And we are, of course, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you're on YouTube, become a subscriber. It's free. All you got to do is hit one button, and it helps us out tremendously as we continue to grow this YouTube channel. You can like the video there as well. And if you're on any of those podcasting platforms, or again, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast, you can subscribe there if it's an option and turn on notifications wherever you get your podcast. I appreciate you making this your first listen every day. Shout out to all of you everydayers out there. You're the reason that we are here. Indiana tonight will remind everybody and prove why they are a top-4 team currently in the Big Ten when they visit Rutgers tonight. Indiana taking on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, and Indiana's 11-4. And in case you have forgot, they're 3-1 in conference play. And do you know where that puts them in the current conference standings? That puts them at 4th. We're 4 games in. Some teams are 3. Most teams are 4. And this Hoosiers team is sitting at 4th in the Big Ten, behind Wisconsin at 3-0, Purdue at 3-1, Minnesota at 3-1, and then Indiana at 3-1 as well. So tonight is a perfect opportunity for the Hoosiers to remind everybody why they're a top-4 team. And this is a game where Indiana's not going to go in here and just prove a bunch of people wrong and just, oh, Indiana beat Rutgers, watch out, here come the Hoosiers. No, that's not what this game is about. It's not about that at all. It's about a top-4 team in the Big Ten right now going in and taking care of business and doing what they are supposed to do as a top-4 team in the conference, as a team who is trying to make a run into the Big Ten tournament, as a team who's trying to make it into the NCAA tournament. You have to win games like this. Like, you cannot go on the road to Rutgers, a team that is 8-6, currently at the bottom of the Big Ten standings at 0-3 with an 8-6 overall record. Shout out to the Big Ten. Only one team has a losing record, and it's Michigan at 6-9 overall, 1-3 in conference play. But everybody else is above 500, which is pretty impressive at this point in the season. But anyway, you can't go on the road to Rutgers, who, again, record-wise, is the worst team in the Big Ten in conference play, and lose this, especially coming off of what you just did against the Ohio State Buckeyes, right? Think about all the momentum and the hype that you've built up over the last few days since Saturday night's performance, since you were able to take down the Buckeyes in your own house, a game that you had to earn and fight for, right? You have to win these types of games. And if you do, you're not going to get a ton of credit here. Nobody's going to pat you on the back and say, nice job, you beat Rutgers, fantastic, way to go, Indiana. Nobody's going to do that. But if you lose this game, right, and you go in here and you embarrass yourself on that floor there in New Jersey, you're going to get trashed. You're going to get dragged from myself, from you, the listener, you, the fan, and pretty much everybody else around the Big Ten, because Rutgers has yet to beat a Big Ten team this year. They lost to Illinois for their first Big Ten game, and they almost lost by 20. All right, then they lost on the road to that same Ohio State team you just played. Now, that was in Columbus, and they lost by 4, 76-72. And then they lost on the road to Iowa, 86-77. And while that may not be the easiest schedule, it's also not the toughest. Iowa's 1-3 in Big Ten play and 9-6 overall. So it's not like Rutgers has played the craziest of schedules. And the road game at Iowa may not be the toughest thing. In the women's game it is, but not in the men's side of things right now. So you're not playing anybody special here. But this is what the good teams do. You beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. You beat the teams that you are favored against, which you will be favored in this game. The line hasn't officially come out yet, but you will be favored in this game on the road because you're the better team. You're the better team here. If you're Indiana, you're more talented. You're deeper. You have the better coach. You have the better program than Rutgers, who is trying to make a push with some of those big recruits that we've talked about over the last few weeks and the last few months, and we'll continue to talk about. But top teams in this league win games like this. Top teams in college basketball take care of business, right? There's going to be nights where you don't perform your best. Sure. There's going to be nights where you don't play a good game of basketball, but you would rather that come. Well, let me ask you this, because I was going to make a statement, but I'll open it up to you in the comments. And on X, you can follow us at Locked On Hoosiers. What would you prefer? If your team, let's say if Indiana's going to have a bad night, would you prefer it be against a good team like Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin coming up, where if you don't play good, the whole team plays bad, you're probably going to get run out of the gym? Or would you rather a bad performance, if it's going to happen, if it's inevitable for it to happen, would you rather that be against a team like Rutgers where you can still overcome it and try to win the basketball game and still have a chance to win the basketball game? I think that's probably where you would rather see it. And it is inevitable, especially with this Indiana team. Bad games are in there, right? Bad games are in that bag somewhere. They're just pulling out chips and you never know which one you're going to get. I don't think that happens here. I think Indiana builds off of what they did. I think Indiana has the size advantage here, the scoring advantage here, the defensive advantage here. And we're going to get to that later on here in the show. But this is what good teams do. You handle your business. You win the games you're supposed to. And you don't mess around with bad teams. And while Rutgers may not be bad, they're not good. So I look for Indiana to go on the road and remind people, cement that top 4 standing in the Big Ten when they take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights tonight on the road in the Big Ten. Well, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll talk about what this team can do with this game tonight, some keys to the game, plus how you can build off of this as well and why this game is important, but the next ones are as well when trying to remind those and trying to basically defend your top 4 standing as of right now. That's what's coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than one of my parents or my grandparents or one of my siblings getting sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication that they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com and use code offer locked on to get $20 off your first order. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. Your go-to spot for all things Indiana Hoosiers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. And reminding you, if you haven't checked it out yet on YouTube, you can subscribe to us. It's free. It helps us out a lot. And you can also go check out Locked On Sports Today, where they are doing 24/7 coverage of all sports all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Go check them out. Give them the subscribe. They are covering hockey, basketball, football, baseball, you name it, they got it. From covering the leagues to covering individual teams, all of our local experts here at Locked On are on there. We're on there at times, so you never know. You may see us kind of pop up there on Locked On Sports Today. So go check that out. Give them a subscription if you would. That would help them out a lot, and they would really appreciate it. So be sure you go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Well, Indiana, we were just talking about how if you want to be a legitimate program, right? If you want to remind people that you're back and be a competitor this year, be a competitor in the next few years, and kind of crawl out of this hole that Indiana has been in years and years past. I know we've had some good years stacked up here, but you get what I'm saying here. It seems like the Ohio State game was an opportunity. The future will tell here, but I think the Ohio State game could be an opportunity to really launch pad into this season and really start to get things going. Because, man, look at what the schedule has done for Indiana, right? Look at what this season has done. It's been so up and down when it comes to wins and losses, right? You win your first 3 games, but gosh, they were ugly. You had to sweat all 3 of them. Then you had to fight with UConn, and you ultimately lose that one by 20. You beat Louisville. That turned out to be whatever. Louisville's not that great. Harvard and Maryland, you open up Big Ten play, but 2 back-to-back wins. Starting to feel good about ourselves. That included a road win at Michigan, which they may not be great, but a road win in the Big Ten's always tough to get, the best conference in college basketball. Then you back it up with the blowout loss to Auburn and the close loss to Kansas. And we're thinking, man, here we go, right? This team's going to kind of regress. We're going to take a step back. It's just going to be a mediocre season. Then they start winning again, right? They beat Morehead State, they beat North Alabama, and they beat Kennesaw State. 2 of those games were a little bit closer than we wanted to, but we're feeling okay. Then we're back into Big Ten play. All right, on the road at Nebraska. They're decent. This is a good chance to get back going right in this season. And you lose. And you lose in embarrassing fashion. You let them just go off on you at the end and put you away in the second half. So then we're really thinking, okay, I mean, is this team worth anything? Are they good? Are they not? Are they going to be good? Can they beat anybody they're not supposed to? What's going to happen here? And then you beat Ohio State. You beat Ohio State, and I know Indiana was supposed to win, but there were so many people picking us to lose that game. And I saw some people talking about Indiana standards have dropped because we're celebrating wins over Ohio State. That's a good win, man. That's a really good win. Ohio State is middle of the pack right now, 12-3 overall on the season. Yes, they're 2-2 in Big Ten play, but they're still 12-3 overall. Good teams win those games, right? Good teams win those games. When a good team comes to your house, you protect your home floor. That's what this Rutgers game is. And when you start looking ahead a little bit before we get to some keys to the game, you look ahead. How about that Minnesota game coming up this week as well? That's not an easy game, folks. Remember that top 4 in the conference that I gave you right now in the standings? Wisconsin at the top, Purdue right there behind them. And oh yeah, there's Minnesota at 12-3 overall and 3-1 in conference play. That includes a loss to Ohio State, a team you just beat. They lost by 10. That was at Ohio State, so keep that in mind. And then wins over Michigan and Maryland, 2 teams that we're pretty familiar with Indiana. And they don't play another game until they play us here in Bloomington. So that's another opportunity for you to be the better team, better athletes, with a better coach to go and win the game. And that's what you're supposed to do. But doesn't mean Indiana's going to do it, right? What have we done so far for us to believe that this team's going to go out and do that? And I'm not saying that and trying to tear this team down by any means, but the consistency just hasn't been there yet. But here's your chance to find it. Here's your chance to get on that roll, because we all know what's coming up after that, right? We all know what comes up after this game against Rutgers and this game against Minnesota. It's number 1 Purdue. Then it's, as of right now, number 15 Wisconsin and number 10 Illinois. So you have a chance to not only have some consistency, build a run, get some confidence, and start upsetting some of those teams. Because guess what? That's what NCAA tournament teams do. That's what they do. They beat the teams they're supposed to. They upset a few that they're not. And you get yourself a nice seed, and anything's possible when March comes around. Ohio State, that's a tournament team. That's a tournament game. Minnesota, they're probably one right now. I haven't seen them exactly in the bracketology in the latest one. Purdue, tournament game. Wisconsin, tournament game. Illinois, tournament game. You have Ohio State coming up again. Purdue, again. Northwestern, tournament game. Wisconsin, tournament game. Michigan State, tournament game. You see what I'm saying here? It's right now. This is conference play. Conference play is where you find out whether this Indiana team, with the players we have on this roster and the head coach of Mike Woodson, whether you like him or not, we are about to find out whether they're ready or not, whether they are capable of doing what they're supposed to do. And that's beating good teams. And in the case of this Rutgers game, and I think even the Minnesota game, beating teams that you're better than, beating the ones you're supposed to, not dropping silly games. Because what happens if you lose to Rutgers tonight? What happens? You got to make up for that somewhere. Where are you going to make up for it? That means, in my mind, you have to beat somebody that you're going to be the underdog against. Who's it going to be? Purdue? I don't know. Wisconsin? Illinois? Michigan State at the end of the year? You've got to make up for that bad loss somewhere with a good win. And guess what? Hoosier fans, we don't have a good win. Ohio State is our good win. Now, I'll say this, outside of Nebraska, we don't have a bad loss. And we all better be Nebraska fans for the rest of the way. So that loss looks better and better as it goes. But that's what I'm saying. We're just kind of there. We're just kind of moving straight. We're just kind of moving along at level pace. We're not high or we're not low. We're just kind of there. You have a chance to avoid going low here against Rutgers, probably going low against Minnesota, and in those next 3 games, you have a chance to really jump up above the bar. Do you get what I'm saying here? Don't fool around with Rutgers. Don't mess around with this team. They're not good. You're better than them. We're going to talk about some keys to the game in just a second. Just do your job. Do your job. Win the game. Don't mess around. Act like you're a top 4 team in the standings of the Big Ten right now. Go into this game. Put them away early. Put them away. You're on the road. Go in there. Earn that, right? And really live in being the road team. There are so many players that thrive on the road and loved playing on the road in college and even in the NBA too. I would love for this team to embrace that one time. In an atmosphere that I don't think is going to be anything super crazy, you have a chance to do it. You've already proven you can go on the road and win once against Michigan. Let's do it against an even worse team than that, against Rutgers tonight. Well, coming up for a final segment on the show, we'll talk about some keys to the game for the Rutgers game in particular. What does Indiana have that Rutgers does not? What does Rutgers maybe have that Indiana doesn't? And how can the Hoosiers come away with a win and get their 4th win in Big Ten play? We'll talk about all that coming up in just a second on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. So if you want to join FanDuel tonight and you feel confident, well, you don't even have to win it anymore. All you got to do is place a $5 bet, and they're going to give you $150 in bonus bets just like that, just for placing the bet. So what are you doing? Place $5 on the Hoosiers if you want to, and all you got to do is place it, and they're going to give you $150. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can't beat it. It's free bonus money. Go get it on FanDuel right now. The app is easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet. Like live game, same game parlays. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being an everydayer. Thank you so much. You're the reason that we are, you're the reason that we're here. You're the reason that we are able to do what we do. And we just continue to grow with subscribers. We're over 1,600 on YouTube. So thank you so much for that. Please, if you're not one, become one. It's free. Hit the subscribe button. It helps us out. And you'll be notified every time that we post a new episode on YouTube. And if you're on audio, we're free and available there. So be sure you're there as well. And thank you so much. Let's get to some keys to the game tonight. All right, let's get to some keys on how Indiana takes down this Rutgers team. You look at some of the team comparisons, all right? Indiana is just better in every way except a few, okay? Indiana's averaging 75.5 points a game. Rutgers averaging 68.5. So we'll round down just to make it easy. 75 and 68. All right, so you're outscoring them on average almost, you're looking at 8 points there. And you're looking, I guess, 7 points there. You're also, here's the thing, though. Rutgers defensively is pretty darn good. They're pretty darn good. They're only giving up 64 points a game right now is Rutgers. And you look at their last couple of games. Look at their last two Big Ten games. They did give up 86 to Iowa, and they gave up 76 to Ohio State. Some of those numbers, and that 60 number is pretty lopsided based off of a lot of their early season games against Howard and St. Peter's and Bryant, where they were holding teams to 40 and 50 points. So don't get fooled by that number. And they started off the year with a loss to Princeton. Like, what are we doing, right? In their game against Illinois, they gave up 76. Against Wake Forest, they gave up 76. Mississippi State, 70. Ohio State, 76. And Iowa, 86. What does that tell me? Tells me against good offenses, some of those teams don't even have good offenses, but against quality opponents, Rutgers is giving up some points. So that 64 is kind of misleading. It's not a great shooting team. They only shoot 40% from the floor. Indiana shoots almost 50%, and we know why, right? Indiana crashes the paint with Malik Reneau, with Kel'el Ware, with Mackenzie Mbako, and I really do want to see Xavier Johnson have another good game. I hope the one game wasn't just an anomaly, right? I hope that's not just a one-off thing where he just came back second game, was on fire, felt himself, was playing really well, and then he takes a step back here against Rutgers. He needs to keep the foot on the gas because I do think he helps his offense just flow a whole lot better. So Indiana shoots it a lot better. Here's one thing that has to be better. Has to be better. And it's something that we talked about from the game the other night against Ohio State. This team has to rebound better. I mean, we have to grab the offensive and defensive rebounds and make possessions out of it. Rutgers is not a great rebounding team. They're better than Indiana statistically, but I think most teams fit into that category. Grab the boards. You're too tall, too physical, too good to not be grabbing rebounds. And look, we talked about this. Indiana cannot afford to give other teams multiple shots on a possession and give them more and more possessions. Those stats from the other night, that's not going to happen in wins very often. I mean, at all. Like, that's not how basketball works. Indiana was able to force turnovers and score off those turnovers, but getting out rebounded and outscored on second chance points like you did, you're playing with fire if you try and do that. Here's one thing that really tells me what this Rutgers team is. In the few games that I've watched them, this is very much the case. They don't pass the ball a whole lot. They're a very individual team. They average less than 12 assists per game as a team, okay? And the guys you need to watch out for, they've got a few. They've got three guys that average double digits. You're looking at Andre Hyatt, the forward. That's going to be a battle between, I guess, Kel'el Ware, Malik Reneau. More than likely Malik Reneau. He's been put on most of the big guys, the more skilled big guys we've seen over the last couple of weeks, because you have Clifford Omarui. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's averaging almost 11 points a game. He's their center. And that's going to be Kel'el Ware's battle because this guy is 6'11". So 6'11", 240. So Kel'el Ware is going to have a nice time inside with that. He almost averages a double-double. So again, what happens if Kel'el Ware is non-existent, right? Or maybe just shut down? Maybe it's the Malik Reneau show again. I'm cool with that. I think you are as well. And Reneau has shown he could carry that load when he needs to. And then Mawot Mag, the forward who averages 10 points a game as well. This team is horrible shooting the basketball. 29% from the floor, but 29% from three. That's Indiana's dream. But guess what? The Hoosiers will find a way to let them shoot 50% if they don't play better defense. But if they play the way they did the other night, especially in the second half against Ohio State, defensively, Indiana's got a really good chance here because even if they get open, Rutgers isn't making these shots. They shoot 29%. Their guards are non-existent here. They don't have a guard that averages over 8-9 points a game. So you're going to be fine here. And that's why I think Xavier, Johnson, Trey Galloway, and hopefully CJ Gunn, maybe even Anthony Lee or Gabe Cupps. This is a guard game right here. A guard game. If the guards can play well for the Hoosiers, they're going to win and win comfortably and win by a lot. Defend the three. They don't shoot it very well. They're going to go inside. How about we just cancel that out and let our guards go against theirs? I like our chances if we're playing top tier basketball. I like our chances there. Absolutely. That's what I'm looking for in this game tonight. Rebound the basketball, take care of the basketball because you're still on the road, right? You're still on the road in the Big Ten, which is not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy place to win anywhere in this conference away from your home gym. That's the formula. It's simple. It hasn't changed since the game was created. Rebound the basketball, don't turn it over, and make your shots. If you do that, Indiana's going to be fine. And Indiana will hold as a top 4 team in the Big Ten. I think that happens. I think it happens comfortably. And I'm excited to have a post-game reaction show with you here on Locked On Hoosiers. We'll talk about it all when Indiana hopefully takes down Rutgers. Then we have Minnesota coming up on Friday. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. So be sure you stay tuned here on Locked On Hoosiers. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Again, that just helps us out a lot. So be sure that you do that. If you're on any of your audio platforms, again, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So be sure you check us out there, subscribe, turn on notifications. And hey, we'll be back tomorrow for a reaction episode after Indiana and Rutgers. Should be a good game tonight. Looking forward to it, Hoosier fans. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.